On today's show, I'm going through the middle third of my top 30 Rangers prospects, including 3 guys that were undrafted free agents in that class of 2020 that's looking better and better and better for the Rangers. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing. Now, before we get into the next chunk of my top 30 Rangers prospects, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASEmedical.com. Now, on yesterday's show, I broke down the first 10, or I guess the bottom 10 of my top 30 prospects rankings, and there were a couple of new guys that were really exciting on the list, a couple of guys who had been around for a while, and I think everybody on this list for this chunk, this third, has been there before, but some really, really exciting. Actually, there is one guy who was not on any of my top 30s before who had a really nice breakout season last year, and it may not be the hitter that you were thinking of. But let's get into it. My number 20 prospect on this top 30 2024 preseason is Davis Wendzel, a former first-round pick out of Baylor University, a Irvine native, not a Texas native by growing up, but he's a college Texan, and he's stuck here in Texas, and this year in not the Texas League, but in the PCL, which is in Texas. In Round Rock, he had a very, very good season for the Round Rock Express. He is a utility player. He is a little bit older on the prospect side. He's going to have his age 27 season this year, but I am a big believer in Davis Wendzel. I think he could have a pretty prolonged major league career. He is a utility infielder who's got is a very good judge of the strike zone, has got some pretty good pop as well. He had 30 home runs this year and 19 doubles in 124 games for the AAA Round Rock Express, while playing a little bit of shortstop, a little bit of third base, a little bit of second base as well this year. In the past, he has played in the outfield for a couple of games in college, but pretty much a solid defensive shortstop, a solid defensive third baseman. He was in that same draft class as Josh Young. They were both co-players of the year in the Big 12 in their final season in 2019. And he had a really solid season this year. And I think that he could be making his debut in the majors this year. He's a little bit below on the pecking order of Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith, but I think he's a little bit ahead of Jonathan Ornelas. Now, his glove isn't quite as good as Ornelas's, and I don't think that he is going to play center field like Jonathan Ornelas does, but the strike zone discipline and the raw power are very, very good. I mean, it is rare to have somebody hit 30 home runs in a minor league season, because minor league seasons are shorter, and usually if they're doing that well, they'll be bumped up to another level to go ahead and have harder pitchers to face off against. And the last time that anybody had 30 home runs for the Round Rock Express was Kyle Tucker, back when they were owned by the Houston Astros. So it's been a while since anyone's had a 30 homer season for the Round Rock Express, and it wasn't just, mirage power. It was legitimate raw power that was translating into games. He does pop up the ball just a little bit too much, which is why his batting average was down a little bit this year at 236, but the on base is in the 360s and the OPS is 838. It was a solid offensive season, and with the glove being what it is, I mean, that's the makings for a solid bench player. I don't think he's going to be an everyday big leaguer at any point, especially since he's, going to be 27 in May of this year. But hey, that's a guy who could have a pretty long career, at least like a 5-year career in the big leagues as a backup bench guy with, good on base skills, good defensive skills, and some pop when you need it. So I'm a believer in Davis Wendzel. Really liked what he did last year, and I think is definitely worthy of earning him a spot on the top 30 prospect list. Now, next guy on this list is a right-handed pitcher, Emiliano Teodo. He has started for most of his career, but the big breakout for Teodo really came in the Arizona Fall League this year. He's 22 years old. He has started at pretty much every level in his minor league career, 59 games, 31 of those were starts, but he did not start a single game in the Arizona Fall League. He pitched in 8 games, 11 innings, 19 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 hits, 0 runs. That was against the most advanced competition that he has faced in his minor league career. 0 runs, 19 strikeouts in 11 innings. The guy was the reliever of the year in the Arizona Fall League. He was just absolutely dynamic. He has got a fastball that ranges up into the triple digits, and he's been able to command it just a little bit better, made it a 2-seamer as opposed to a 4-seamer, get a little bit more better movement on it as opposed to it just being 100 miles an hour and straight at you, which big league hitters can time up and more advanced hitters can time up that velocity. But getting a little bit of movement on it with the velocity, that is a dangerous pitch, as well as his breaking ball, which is a curveball, sometimes called a slider. I think it's more of a curveball, but it is a very, very fast curveball that he can throw 4 strikes. It's got a lot of bend on it as well. And it's a very, very freaking good pitch for him. I think he's going to transition to the bullpen sooner as opposed to later, because I just don't see him being able to stack up these innings as much as I would really, really like him to. He missed the good chunk of the beginning of the season with an injury, but still pitched 61 2/3 innings in Hickory this year, and then added 11 more in Surprise. I was in Down East the year before as a 21-year-old, so he's about age appropriate for each of these levels. I'd imagine that he starts in Double-A Frisco next year, but this is a guy who could make the major league roster out of camp. I really think that he has got that kind of potential. I mean, the guy has got, scary velo and a good breaking ball as well, and he's getting better command of the zone as well. I mean, that walk rate being down where it was, just 3 walks in 11 innings, as opposed to he's averaging about 5 walks per 9 innings in his minor league career before Surprise, I guess, just to this point. He also had 15 and a half strikeouts per 9, in case you weren't doing the math on 19 strikeouts in 11 innings. It is some impressive numbers at each stage of the game. But if he can cut that walk rate down even more, then maybe he can stick as a starter. If the walk rate is around, 3.5, 4 walks per 9, that's more of a reliever, but still the stuff is extremely nasty. I wouldn't be surprised to see him move quickly through the system, make his big league debut at some point next year. Maybe him making the roster out of camp is a bit, aggressive, but the guy's stuff is as nasty as, well, it is nasty enough to be in the big leagues right now and get big league hitters out. Can he stay in the zone enough to succeed as a major league reliever at this point? Well, I don't know, but I think the Rangers are very, very intrigued as to what they have seen, and the early signs have been very promising for one Emiliano Teodo. Now, next guy on this list, number 18 prospect in the Rangers system, is Aidan Curry. Aidan Curry is one of the several players that the Rangers signed as an undrafted free agent after that shortened 2020 draft. The Rangers got, obviously, a great draft class in 2020. Justin Foscue is a solid first-round pick. Evan Carter as a second-round pick is going to be probably one of the bigger steals in the draft of, the last 10 years, if Evan Carter's career pans out anywhere near what he did in the first 2 months of being a big leaguer. And then they had several guys who they signed as undrafted free agents. $20,000 to Aidan Curry is looking like an absolute steal for what the Rangers got. He spent this year between Hickory and Down East. Most of his time in Hickory, he's a 20-year-old who's listed at 6'5", 205 pounds, so really has the kind of frame that you can add on a little bit more weight, and has the kind of frame that you could imagine being a workhorse starting pitcher in the big leagues, and he's got the repertoire to prove it as well. He's got a fastball that sits 90 to 95, but it plays up because it's got some pretty good movement on it as well. This year in Down East, he started 15 games, pitched in 19, had an ERA of 2.3, which is awesome in 80 innings, also 99 strikeouts, around 3 walks per 9. Really, really solid numbers. Wasn't quite as pretty when he went to Hickory. He's still 3 years younger than the average Hickory pitcher in the Sally League, which is really impressive. 6 innings there, 10 strikeouts, but really got bit by the home run ball, 3 homers in 6 1/3 innings. Not great, but hey, he's still very young and aggressive promotion for a guy who had a really solid season up to that point. Just trying to get him more innings after the year was done. That's encouraging. I'd imagine he starts the year in Hickory, but this is a guy who has got some other pretty solid offerings, a pretty good fastball, and I'm excited to see what he does next year. And if he makes it up to Double-A Frisco by the end of next year, that is a really, really good sign for Aidan Curry. Coming up, we'll look at the next grouping of these prospects, including a guy who didn't have the best season in Triple-A, but still is worth mentioning, and another guy who had a season-ending injury that is definitely someone to keep an eye on in 2024. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy reality of life, but can we talk for just a minute about preparing for tough situations? Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at Jase Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Jase Medical has the Jase case. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial infections, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at just a fraction of the cost. It has never been more important to be prepared than today. So go to jasemedical.com and use our offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back with the top 10 prospects in the Rangers system. Some very exciting names to talk about. And I think we'll be back maybe on Thursday as well. We'll see. But anyway, let's get into the number 17 prospect in this Rangers prospect list. That is Dustin Harris, the outfielder slash third baseman slash first baseman slash mainly just an outfielder at this point. He was acquired in the trade for, I believe it was the Elvis Andrus trade as well. Acquired from, that was the Mike Minor trade. Sorry, a different trade where the Rangers absolutely fleeced the A's. He came in and was an absolute star for the Rangers in 2021, a really, really great year. 2022 was also a really, really solid season from Dustin Harris. But this year wasn't quite as great. He did spend half his time in Frisco, half his time in Round Rock, and overall the numbers were actually much better in Round Rock. In 67 games there, just under 300 plate appearances. He had 17 stolen bases and 9 home runs, on base of 382, slugged 455. He had an on base around 370 at Frisco as well, and slugged over 400. But just the power numbers were pretty far down from where they had been in years past, and even with more games played and more at bats as well, the power numbers overall were down. Just 14 home runs for him this year. Did have 7 triples, which was very, very impressive, and he's got the speed to do it. I mean, he's really got some great speed. The instincts are improving in the outfield. He had mostly played third base and first base, but it seems like corner outfield is probably where he is going to stick. That's where the Rangers think he's got the most value, and I don't necessarily think they believe in him that much long-term as a third baseman. It's going to be tough for him to find a spot in this Rangers team. Again, he is an outfield prospect, and even though he had an 809 OPS in 566 plate appearances this year, it wasn't quite the leap that I was hoping for Dustin Harris to make. He does still have some holes in his swing. I'm not still entirely sold on how good of a defensive corner outfielder he can be. I mean, he's got the athleticism. It's just a matter of getting the reps and just sticking with it and seeing if those reps and that athleticism can really kind of play up in the way that you would want. The exit velocities for him this year in AAA were not super encouraging, like you would think of a guy who, slugged 455. I just want to see that power play a little bit more. I know he's got that raw power in there. He is a very, very strong dude. But again, I would just like to see it play up just a little bit more than we have seen it in games at this point. He was in my top 10 prospects last year for the Rangers, dropped all the way to 17. And it wasn't really as much about what he did or didn't do, as opposed to the people around him just improving and impressing just that much more. Number 16 in this top prospect rankings is outfielder Yeison Morrobel, who had a solid full season debut, or I guess regular full season debut. He played in 8 games with the Down East Wood Ducks last year. As an 18-year-old, he is a left-handed hitting outfielder signed out of the Dominican Republic. He just turned 20 in December of this year. But 2023 wasn't super great for him, not because of his performance, but because of an injury. He had shoulder surgery that sidelined him, ended his season in May, unfortunately. Only 37 games for him, but the on-base being where it was at that point at 384 was really, really impressive for a 19-year-old in full season ball. I think he really would have improved even further if he had gotten a full season under his belt. Maybe would have even made it all the way up to high 8 Hickory as a 19-year-old, but again, we will not know. He needs to show a little bit more power. He only had 1 home run in 151 plate appearances this year, and only 3 homers last year in 170-ish, give or take, with the ACL. But I don't know. I'm a believer in this kid. The Rangers are pretty high on him. We'll see what he looks like when he comes back from that shoulder surgery. He is still young, so he is still, it takes a while to have that game power actually play up and get the raw power up to where the Rangers expect him to be. He is probably long-term going to end up as a right fielder. He's got the arm for it. He hits left-handed. He's got projects to have about average-ish speed, maybe a little bit above average, but not going to be playing, I don't think, as much center field in the long term as he has so far. He's played 35 games in right, 75 in center field, but we'll see. I mean, they're going to stick him in center probably as long as he can stay there, to see if he can maintain that value, but the on-base skill is there. The raw power needs to show itself a little bit more in games for me to feel a little bit better about his ceiling, but hey, solid first season of full season ball, even though it was only 37 games. I'm hoping that he can come back and his age 20 season can be just as impressive as his age 18 season was when he finally made it to stateside ball. Now, next guy on this list is a left-handed pitcher, Mitch Bratt. You may remember him from such great games as being a sacrificial lamb for Team Canada against Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, sending a 19-year-old to face off against probably the best lineup that Team USA could construct, and it predictably did not go well. But hey, the fact that Team Canada felt good enough to put him on their team, well, maybe it was more of a indictment on who was willing to pitch for Team Canada. But hey, it's a nice, major league lesson. I don't think he gave up a single home run, which is about the only thing that went well for him. But hey, the regular season was much, much better for him. He also spent some time in the Arizona Fall League, but he spent this year as a 19-year-old in high A Hickory, 4.1 years younger than the average pitcher in the Satellite League. That is impressive. He had an ERA around 3.5 in 60 innings, struck out nearly 11 per 9, walked 2.5 per 9. Those were really, really solid numbers from a kid who was performing well above his age range. I think he's going to start next year, probably in AA Frisco. The stuff isn't exactly, super electric, but he still knows how to pitch incredibly well, stays in the strike zone, gets guys to expand the zone, isn't going to blow you by you with, 98, 99 miles an hour, but he just knows how to pitch and knows how to pitch very, very well, which is very impressive for a 5th round pick in the 2021 draft. I mean, here's the 2021 draft, and he's already probably going to be in AA, a high school pitcher, already making it to AA in basically 2 years of minor league ball. He also did have a little bit of time in the Arizona Complex League, which, by the way, his Arizona Complex League debut was incredibly impressive, pitching in 4 games and not allowing a single earned run, not walking a single batter in 6 innings and striking out 13. that was pretty darn impressive. So this kid, the Rangers obviously think very highly of him, as did Team Canada, even though it didn't go well against the best hitters in the world as a 19-year-old who hadn't pitched above low A. But hey, he got that experience under his belt, did get an out. So that is something he can put a feather in his cap, and hopefully another feather in his cap if he makes his big league debut in 2025, I think would be the most aggressive expectation for this young left-hander that is no longer the teenage lefty for Team Canada. Coming up, we're going to look at a guy who jumped on my radar this year, had a very nice season. Some of the Rangers put on their 40-man to protect from the Rule 5 draft, and the breakout hitter outside of Wyatt Langford for the 2023 Rangers minor league system. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The regular season is wrapped up, but hey, there is still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you wanted to bet on the Dallas Cowboys to go ahead and win their first Super Bowl since the 90s, you're feeling good about DFW sports, and Rangers just got it kicked off. And so, of course, the Cowboys are going to be next, and then the Mavs are going to win it all, and then the Stars are going to win it all. I mean, they've got all kinds of different odds, and now is the best time to get in on the betting action. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Now let's get to the next player on this list, a guy making his debut on the Locked On Top 30 Rangers prospects. That is shortstop Cam Cauley. He made his debut on the Locked On Rangers podcast this year. One of just a few players I've actually had on this show. That was back all the way in, I believe it was June or July of this year, when he was in the middle of just having a really, really great middle of the season. He was the Rangers' 3rd-round pick back in the 2021 draft out of Barbers Hill High School in Mont Belvieu, Texas. He grew up just outside of Houston, but always grew up a Rangers fan on the good side of history. Spent some time in the Arizona Fall League this year, and also split time between Down East and Hickory. Hickory was where he really made his breakout season. 5 home runs and 7 doubles in just 34 games there. A 760 OPS. Plays a legitimately very, very good defensive shortstop. And Baseball America had his glove and his arm as the best infield glove and arm in the Rangers farm system. He had some pretty decent exit velocities. I mean, they're fine. Not anything crazy, but a little bit more power than I initially thought we would get out of him. I mean, as an 18-year-old in the ACL, in 100 plate appearances, he had 0 home runs, only had 2 in 77 games in Down East in 2022 as a 19-year-old. So that glove will play. That glove will absolutely play, and he's got a pretty decent knowledge of the strike zone, and you got an arm like that, and you can really pick it at shortstop. You've definitely got a future as a possible big leaguer. Really excited by what this kid did. Really kind of jumped out. His tools weren't super loud. It kind of, flew under my radar as the Rangers' 3rd-round pick, back in 2021. I didn't, see much out of him in the complex league debut, but again, it's hard to really make a name for yourself there. And I thought it was fine in 2022 as a 19-year-old in full season ball, but the offensive numbers were just not super great. Really brought the offensive numbers way up this year, and really stood out with his defense and his ability to get on base at a pretty solid rate. So great season from Cam Cauley this year. Next guy on this list is someone who the Rangers put on their 40-man roster to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. That is right-handed pitcher Jose Corniell. Had a really good year this year for the Rangers, spent time between Hickory and Down East, and had pretty good numbers at both spots. Over 100 innings this year as a 20-year-old, where he finished the season, 3.1 years younger than the average Sally League player. 58 innings with a 3.09 ERA and 63 strikeouts for him in his time in Hickory. Really, really solid season. The fastball is probably his best tool. I don't know if he's going to stay as a starter since the Rangers have already put him on the 40-man roster. but the Rangers are clearly big believers in him. They were worried that he was going to be taken in the Rule 5 draft, and seeing him put on the Rangers 40-man roster at age 20 is a pretty encouraging thing. I anticipate he probably starts next year at AA Frisco, but again, this guy has got some pretty high upside. We'll see how long he sticks in the rotation. That will really determine his overall future upside, but I think at the very worst, he's going to be a pretty nasty back-end reliever, and the Rangers are clearly believers that he could at least hit that, because you do not put a guy on the 40-man roster and protect him from someone who hasn't even been to AA. I mean, obviously the Rangers saw something that other teams saw, that this guy could have a big league impact as soon as 2024. So that is a big green flag in his hat, wherever you put green flag. I keep starting this metaphor and never finishing it, but it is a good sign for Jose Corniell after a very, very good season. Only 3 seasons of minor league ball, but hey, he has clearly impressed the Rangers in what he has done so far. Now, the next guy on this list is Josh Stephan, a guy who made it all the way up to AA by the end of the year. He is 22 years old, just turned 22 on November 1st, and he is a DeSoto native, or was born in DeSoto, went to South Grand Prairie High School in Grand Prairie, Texas. So a local boy, 6'3", 185 pounds. I'm believing this kid sticking as a starter. Made just 1 start in AA Frisco. Spent the bulk of the season in Hickory. Had a 2.17 ERA in 62 1/3 innings. 73 Ks, 73 strikeouts. So 10.5 strikeouts per 9. 1.7 walks per 9. The kid commands the strike zone very, very well. Again, being 21 years old and making it all the way up to AA Frisco, even if it was just for 1 start. The Rangers clearly believe in this kid, the local boy. The slider is his best secondary pitch. He's got some pretty good control and a changeup that pairs pretty well with it as well. Being 6'3", I think he's definitely got the frame to stick as a starter. I think his ceiling is probably more of a, maybe a number 3 starter, maybe a number 4. But hey, there's some value in that, and the Rangers haven't done a whole lot of developing even number 3s or 4s in rotations, and if he can hit that number 3 ceiling, that would be a fantastic outcome for Josh Stephan, another 2020 undrafted free agent. The Rangers saw him around town, and he obviously flew under the radar in that 2020 draft with only 5 rounds, and the Rangers said, hey, you want to come play for your hometown team? We'll give you $20,000. And he said, all right, sure, that'll work. Another guy who they did that for is the last guy that I'm going to be talking about today. That is Abimelec Ortiz, a first baseman / corner outfielder, another 2020 undrafted free agent signing. This year was just a massive year for Abimelec Ortiz. He spent time at 2 different levels and finished up in the Arizona Fall League for 12 games there. But between Hickory and Down East, he played 109 games, 33 home runs, 4 triples, which is a little surprising given the reports on his speed, and 20 doubles. That is, 57 extra base hits for him in 450 plate appearances. That's real solid. He hit just shy of 300 for the year, 294 on base in the 370s, slugged 619, a 990 OPS. The guy hit the absolute tarnation out of the baseball, walked at a solid rate. The strikeout rate was more than you'd like for a guy whose entire carrying profile is going to be his offense. He is almost certainly going to be a first baseman. He's a little bit of a bigger guy, listed at 6 foot even and 230 pounds, but boy howdy, can that guy hit the absolute snot out of the baseball. He's got a very, very aggressive approach, but when he makes contact, it is loud, it is hard contact, and it is consistent, which is something that is a green light for him, a nice little feather in his cap, if you will. I swear I've probably said that 18 times over the last 2 podcasts, but hey, it's true. It's true. This guy's probably going to start in AA next year. We'll see how he fares against very, very advanced pitchers. In 12 games in the Arizona Fall League, he hit .314 with an on-base of .460 and slugged .600. 3 home runs in 50 plate appearances. He really, really impressed against those more advanced pitchers. And this is a nice breakout season for a guy who really not a whole lot was thought of him before this year. I mean, in 2022, as a 20-year-old, his first taste of full season ball. He had a 688 OPS, just 11 home runs in 94 games, which, if you're a 20-year-old in full season ball and your whole entire profile is offense first, that's not exactly super duper impressive. But hey, the Rangers saw enough from him to, give him an everyday spot in 2023 as a Down East Wood Duck and promote him after just 29 games to Hickory, where he absolutely crushed it yet again in the Arizona Fall League. He will have to continue to absolutely rake and mash, but I am a big believer in this guy's bat. I mean, it's hard to find guys who can, put up those kind of exit velocities that consistently. I mean, I think Pipeline had his power tool as just a plus. I think the raw power is definitely plus because you cannot get those kind of numbers. I mean, hitting 33 home runs in a full season of minor league ball, you want to bump it up to 36 if you include the Arizona Fall League games. I mean, those numbers don't happen often, and for him being below average age for Hickory, he was about league average age at Down East, but a little bit younger than the average position player in the Sally League. That was impressive. If he continues to rake and mash at the AA level, which I anticipate that he will. I mean, the guy has got a pretty big swing. If he can continue to walk at a very good rate and show that plus in my opinion raw power, then that's a potential big leaguer. That is a guy who could make an impact with just his bat as a first baseman. If he's okay defensively at first base, that'd be great. I mean, thinking about, I think in last week's shows when I was doing my projection for the 2026 Rangers, I had him as the Rangers first baseman in 2026. If the Rangers decided to let Nathaniel Lowe walk in free agency, this could be a guy who is next in line. First base prospects aren't usually a thing because you have to hit at such a high level. I mean, Blaine Krim had a great year for Round Rock, but I didn't include him in my top 30, even though he hit at such a high level. I mean, because, again, you've got to absolutely mash. But Abimelec Ortiz has his offensive ceiling is pretty darn high, and he will have to continue to rake like he did this year in order to make an impact at the big league level. But hey, I'm a believer in that kid, and what a breakout year he had. That's going to do it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow with the top 10, including me talking about, predictably, you might be able to guess a couple of guys in the top 3 or the top 5, or you might be able to guess all 10 of the top 10. But they are some exciting, high-ceiling prospects to talk on tomorrow's show, and that's going to do it for this episode. Until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.